Now, as a channel that builds Jeeps on YouTube and as a living here, we've built and modified a ton of these vehicles. Recently, we picked up a 2025 Jeep Wrangler, and it led us to ask ourselves a few questions. Primarily, can we go too far, or can you at home go too far with your own Jeep build? Hey guys, before this video starts, I just wanted to give a little heads up that this was actually shot before we started modifying the two-door. So do not worry, the two-door still has the wheels, tires, and all that other fun stuff. If you guys haven't seen that video, check it out. But we wanted to get this one out because I think it's a really interesting video, and maybe it makes some more sense as to why we're not lifting and changing all sorts of stuff on our two-door. So sit back and enjoy the video. Welcome back to the channel, guys. We are in the shop. Ryan's mic'd up. He's got a camera on him, and he's also shooting on a camera. So there's a lot of cameras in here on us. We are going to discuss a question that we've been thinking for about 2 weeks now, is can you go too far with a Jeep build? You know, I've built, I don't know, a few dozen Wranglers at this point, a couple Gladiators, Cherokees, YJs, all that fun stuff. We kept asking ourselves as we were driving this fresh build behind us, can you go too far with the build, or how far is too far? So in this video, we want to address that. And the first thing I wanted to ask Ryan, and what do we ask ourselves here, is why are we addressing this question and why are we filming?
We picked this thing up, and as a person that drives a two-door that's fully modified, I noticed the difference right away. This thing was smooth as butter going down the road. For some reason, driving this Jeep that was just bare bones stock right off the dealership lot, it just drove so smoothly and so great. And I wanted to talk about it because I think there can be a little bit too much you can do and a little bit out of control you can go with a Jeep, depending on what your kind of mindset is for building it.
No, it's always interesting, and I kind of felt the same thing. So you drove it home, you took the Jeep home, and then I drove it around that evening. Now, mind you, I'm coming with a four-door on 40s and a Hemi, so getting into this was like night and day. And getting into it, there was just something so simple about popping into a new Wrangler and it just smoothly, quietly zipping down the road. Now, I'm not to say I don't like my Jeep, and you love your Jeep, I love my Jeep, but it's just something about this one that when we got into it, and maybe it's the new car smell and the fact that it's 2025, but why are we filming in this? Because I do think there is a point, subjectively, remember this whole video is subjective to your opinion on how far the mods can go, but where you can go too far. I think that there's a lot of sacrifices that are made from a stock ride quality, a stock ride height, and there's a lot of pros and cons of both. So in this video, what we really wanted to address was some of those things that we love about a stock Wrangler, some of those things that we love about our Wranglers, and then also some of the cons of both of them. I think there's a lot of form, there's a lot of function, there's some topics on resale value, how much it's worth it to keep this thing. So there's gonna be a lot we get into, but I think the first thing here, let's talk about it, Ryan. I think form versus function. That's really what it comes down to. So the form of this Jeep, it is bone stock. There's nothing besides our DRC RGB LED grille lights
And the top 10 accessories we threw on it to
small, but relatively small modifications. And the form of this is not the best. The form of it, the steel, the plastic bumpers up front,
there's stuff that doesn't look good on it.
The steel wheels,
yeah.
the plastic sport fenders, which I don't like the sports, that kind of stuff. Like obviously the form, when you set that next to yours, I look at your two-door, I'm like, damn, that's an awesome rig. And then this parks next to it, and it's like, all right, that one needs some things.
It needs some upgrades.
So the form of the stock Jeep, I don't think they're the best looking. A sport, I think a sport is kind of just, it's stock, it's very base. It's just rudimentary, but the function of it, this thing drives fantastic.
Hopping in and out of it without
so
jumping.
Low, yeah. I'm sure you're not that tall. Like, yeah. And it's just, I think the function of this, it was pulling 27 miles a gallon while I was driving.
Oh, that's the other thing. The mileage was insanely different.
It's quiet, so there's no noise. There's basically no road vibrations because we're on stock street tires. It's easy to get in and out of. There's a lot of functionality benefits of it for the road. So the form of it, I'm not happy with the sport bumpers, all that plastic stuff. The function, though, of a stock Jeep is fantastic. And I think we bring up 2 points. So form and function, I think, are both dependent on where the form and where the function are applied. So form and function, we're talking about on the street with this rig. On the street, the function of it is perfect. It's got street tires. It's got a low suspension. It's easy to get in and out of. You can whip around a parking lot, no problem. The function of it off-road, park this next to yours at AOA and we'll go up the same trail and see how it performs.
Yeah, destroy the underside.
The underside's going to be gone. These tires are going to be spinning. We took your stock up to AOA and it was hitting a lot.
Grinding a lot.
It was grinding a lot.
It's still capable. Like
It's
the Jeep is
capable. I'm
capable.
not gonna lie, but like you're gonna hit harder trails, and that's where the functionality of off-road mods, the lift, the wheels, the tires, you might get a little bit of a sacrifice on road for some heavier duty, like my 40 sitting over there, but then the functionality of them off-road is where the pros are. So I think what we get back to a lot of that, like, do you want to modify this so you can take it off-road, and are you comfortable with sacrificing some of that daily driving ability to take it
Yeah,
off-road?
to do that, right? There's
There
kind
is
of
a
push and pull of
sacrifice.
sacrifice for sure, and I think a lot of times too, like people will just upgrade just to upgrade and just to get a higher height on the road.
Yep.
So it might not even be towards the off-road kind of feel for your Jeep, but
It's more of a form. So there's form as well for a lift kit. And I think a lot of people, like when they lift and do that, if it's their first time lifting a Jeep, first time putting tires on, there's a ton that you want to do right. But either way, I think there's a lot of questions for that first time person that's buying a Jeep when they're lifting it and modifying it. There's a lot of things that you can ping by us and ping by some of those affiliate shops we work with, because you can lose all the ride quality of your Jeep if you do the wrong lift and the wrong tires. I've heard Jeeps with just a slight tire size increase from what I've had on a stock Jeep humming down the road because they're not balanced right, they're too heavy duty of a tire, and then all the ride quality goes out of the way. So I think that there is form for the people that want it to look good on the road but don't really want to take it off-road, but you got to balance the two,
Yeah.
the form and the function. I think we're so happy jumping in this, and what I said to you in the car when we got Chick-fil-A, because there's a Chick-fil-A in Lebanon, was that a lot of the old school Jeep guys could park one of these in their garage, drive like a Lincoln Continental to work all week. So a comfortable, smooth ride, but then jump in the Jeep on the weekends. I think that's what we're seeing, is because we're used to like our hardcore off-road rigs, and then we get in this and it's like smoothly clean. Like when I get in my wife's car.
yeah. But nowadays it's a little bit more like you own one vehicle.
You don't have two.
You don't have two vehicles. There's all these extra payments that can go with having multiple vehicles. So having just one, I think I talked about it earlier, but Jeep's kind of mindset and marketing towards the group that they're trying to push these newer Jeeps to is just for that sole reason, to have it drive on the road at a good, comfortable pace. And that's why they add all these nice creature covers now compared to some of the older Jeeps. But you can still modify it. You can still do all this stuff aftermarket. And they do have some of the packages that they can do from the factory, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing too we wanted to touch on. My dad's Extreme Recon on 35s, 456, how I bought my 392, how I bought my last Jeep. The ride quality of those on 35s, it's the right load range tire. That's a big thing that I just said. Load range C, a soft tire, a smooth ride, but it's already lifted.
Yeah.
So I think as much as we give Jeep grief, they did a good job as far as doing that. But really the point of this is, can you go too far with that? So you're kind of ripping apart, like when you've got an Extreme Recon, like I've done twice, ripping all that off and starting from scratch, will you go too far with it? And what is too far?
Why don't we talk about some of the main kind of things that we switch up on a Jeep that we would kind of change first off the bat that might sway somebody from not doing it, or could change the ride quality, or could change it in the future. But like, there's definitely some mods that we do to our Jeeps that could be more of the form for the look, because we hate all the plastic on this Jeep, and then others are going to be for the more of the, what are you using it for?
Yeah, so I think the first functional mods that we always make, so we're talking just function. This is something that we use for an intended purpose, the lift kit and the wheels and tires. That's the first one on a Jeep. That's the first what we did to yours, first what we did to mine, lift kit, wheels and tires. Now with a lift kit and wheels and tires, you want to articulate, and that's almost a pun there, articulate to the shop how much you want to articulate, something like that. But you want to articulate what you're planning to do with this Jeep, and if it's a good shop that knows what they're talking about, they'll help you build it so it stays like that. If you say, look, guys, I want to keep this thing riding smooth, but I want to pick it up in the air a little bit more, right? Like I want to get the look that I'm going for. I want to pick it up. They'll help you get the right size tire, the right load range tire, the right lift kit that's going to stay smooth and safe for you. Joe at Locked and Loaded, we could probably do this whole episode with him. He dials in so many family rigs to make them comfortable for the family, for the wife that's jumping in, for the 16-year-old that just got their license. That's how you want to build it. Or you go to the extreme, like ours, 3.5 inch on 40s, but you have to be comfortable with that sacrifice of ride quality for off-road quality, is I think where it's at. Because a 40 on a 17-inch beadlock is not going to ride like a 16-inch wheel and street tires.
Well, I think you decide. I think it comes back to subjectivity of the build. Yours is going to be the 40's, the big. You have the 3.5 lift on there.
Yeah.
I wanted to go 1.5 inches for the reason of not being as high up, and kind of retain some of that ride quality on the road, because that's primarily where I'm going to have it. So it's definitely up to the user, and I think depending on what you go with too is really going to affect it as well, because I feel like you're going to get more sway, and because you're even higher up when you're on the road versus me that is a little bit lower. It's not a crazy significant difference, but I mean, we just see a difference of 1.5 inches just on that compared to mine, and it's wild. But I'm sure mine compared to yours is just the same as far as like difference in ride quality.
It's insane. No, I mean, the ride quality on mine, it's definitely, it's a more firm ride. The coil springs are fantastic, but when I take that thing off road and flex it, you can't compete with it. You know what I mean? So that's where you want to play around with what you're getting out of it. On these newer JLs too, like a lot of the sway that we're talking about, it used to be horrible on my YJs with leaf springs. You'd lift that and you'd be like, you're like driving a pirate ship when it's windy. So a lot different. These JLs are wider now. They come with coil springs, etc. But I think that main question is, how much are you willing to sacrifice, or what are your goals with the Jeep? Because you don't want to do like a spacer lift just to get it up in the air and then you decide you like wheeling, and you're going to need to go with a full kit. So I think functionality-wise, that's what we start with. The form ones, the big form ones, get rid of those.
Yeah, because those are ugly.
They're hideous. No, we did yours. We did the lift kit. We did the wheels and tires on yours, and I could not stand these plastic bumpers on your rig. I love the stance of it. I was just like, we need to rip those. Like, I think I threw them in the trash when we were done with them. We gave them to somebody. I don't know. But it was just, I think the form of that, even if you're not looking to wheel all the time and using a winch and using all that, I think the form of a steel bumper, even a factory steel bumper, is just that much better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how they used to come.
They did, yeah. No, they definitely did. I think it was a lot better, and I like the form of like a Moto-Built, like a steel bumper. The function's better, but also the form.
And it really does change up the look.
You open up all of this on it, and then the other form mods. I think the biggest shift in the market lately is a lot more form mods are personalized. So if you go down to Tennessee, if you go down to Daytona, every Jeep's got a theme, right? They've all got their logos, they've got their decals, but I like to see that because they're really personalizing it for what they want. But maybe it's not as much lift kit, wheels and tires. It's more put some lights on it, put some custom decals, change up the interior, put some audio into it, because that's where they see the most bang for their buck, I would say. What's going to give you the most enjoyment to spend $1,000, spend $50? What's giving you the most enjoyment out of it, right? And I think maybe that's a good point for all of it. What am I going to enjoy the most out of what money goes into it? Will I enjoy being able to go on harder trails versus will I enjoy a better sound system? And that's where that money needs to go. So.
Or you just want to look good all together,
Yeah.
Just build it up to look huge. I'm sure there's a plenty that we've seen that don't even hit the trails.
I'm on RevKit right now looking at these builds, and there are just, I mean, I was in the Moto-Built tab here. Their builds are insane. I mean, Bob Bed 42s, coilovers, Hellcats, Hemis, everything you can think of. And it's like, I always looked at that when I was younger and even growing up, and that was what kind of you aspired to be as a Jeep person. You're into Jeeping forever. You wanted the biggest, baddest build. The thing that I've always realized is no matter how big you think your Jeep is, no matter how cool you think it is, there's always a bigger Jeep. And it's funny.
TJ at Smoky Mountain, or it was a YJ or something.
60s,
yeah, it was huge.
But
not road legal, but
my one show, I finally got 35s or 37s on my JK, and I pull up to a Jeep show, and right next to me comes another JK on 42s. And I was like, the moment you feel big, there's always a bigger Jeep. So don't feel like you need to be the biggest, baddest Jeep, because I promise you there is
I don't think the culture's there anymore. The culture's not to be the biggest or the
it's
whatever.
Now a lot lately. It's sound systems, it's lighting, it's definitely changed. Yeah. And no, I think there's a rabbit hole though. That's one thing I wanted to address. I have it written down here: the rabbit hole of modifications. Once you start modifying it, everything else kind of starts to have to go down the rabbit hole. You did a lift and wheels and tires. What was the next thing to do?
Yeah, the immediate thing was bumpers.
Because it looked the oddball part. It's like, man, you invested in lifting wheels and tires? Is that all your budget? Did you blow it all? Because it's like you got plastic here, but then everything else is kind of done.
But that's the cool thing too. It's like you're going to be owning this Jeep for 5 to 10 years, depending on what type of owner you are. If you're not you buying one every 2 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep it for a while, so why not take the time, and when you do have the money, invest it back in your vehicle, right?
Yeah, and they are, Jared, the owner of AMW, said these things are like Legos. You can just keep pulling things and putting them off and modifying them and stuff. So I think that is cool, but there is a rabbit hole. There's a rabbit hole of modifications where I think you get too far into it. And let me explain a little bit. So when I went to 40s, when I was forcefully coerced to go 40s on my 392 by Joe and Ben and all you guys.
We would never.
You put 40s on, you put the lift on, and then it turns into, all right, now I got to upgrade the steering. Now I got to add some more room for the tires. Now I got to upgrade the axles. Now I got to go PSC. Like, that's the rabbit hole I'm talking about. So I think you can get to a point where it just keeps to where you're at 50, 60,000 into a build. And it's like, my goodness.
Now your build is an extreme
It's
case.
extreme. It's the craziest I've ever done.
That was the goal for it though.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I think a lot of people haven't seen all the other Jeeps that I've built. Maybe we'll put up some shots here, but we've done all of it. We've done Hemi swaps. We've done B-locks, 37s, 40s. I've done all that, but we've never played with a factory 392, surprisingly. And, yeah, I think that's just what we wanted to. That was the goal of that build. That reason we're talking about this is because this Jeep is all different. The whole build plan is completely.
Yeah, this is a fresh
build and a different take that we've done before. You know, normally it is let's do the lift, let's do the plan, the wheels and tires, and this is different.
Usually we're going let's make the ultimate off-road rig, right?
Right.
This is more of like a specialty build. It's something we could take to shows. It's really just kind of a piece for us to build, and I think that's the coolest part about it. But yeah, we're mostly building off-road crazy rigs. You know, if we did a Gladiator, it might be something different because that's not as crawling centric. So it just depends, and I think the way we're handling this one is going to be different than way, you know, Joe down the street's going to handle it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we have a variety of ways we can go about it.
And I think the cool thing is like the premise of this video, you know, starting off at the beginning, what the goal of it is. This has a different goal, but we're getting that from the beginning instead of just going into it like, let's just do it like our normal builds and we'll figure it out. You know, we'll just keep going crazy. With your build and with my build, we've been starting to dial them in from the beginning versus like, I mean, now I made the change to 40s, which is crazy, but it looks cool now that it's all done. But like getting that plan from the beginning, this is all planned out. Like we sat there the moment we decided to buy it and it was like completely planned out. Now it'll have modifications. It'll have the viewer input of you guys watching is insane. We get so many ideas from that. But the form of this is going to look the part for our build, but the function, we want to retain that drivability. I feel like I want to be comfortably able to get in this thing and drive out to California and come back. And I said that to my dad. We were driving around to the Army Navy store to look at some ideas for this. And I said, I feel like we could just hop on Route 66 and cruise across the country, how smooth this is. And when you get there, you're comfy. You know what I mean? You're getting 30 miles a gallon out of it. So we want to incorporate that into the build. We want to make it towards that build. But I think the other thing we wanted to talk about too in this is putting all those mods in, putting all that money into it, the resale of built Jeeps and what you get out of mods. Such a tricky thing. I've been down that path.
Especially with the market right now, like the Jeeps
Market's soft. The Jeep market's
Jeeps
terrible
Jeeps
right now.
used to sell like used Jeeps used
Crazy.
to sell crazy amounts, and I keep seeing a few even driving over to your house. Some on the used lots are still kind of high up there, even for JKs. It just the idea that a used Jeep is selling for that much is insane. But nowadays, it's kind of fluctuating. You can get like 23s, 22s off the lot that aren't even used. And they're new still because they're not selling, but that's a whole other topic. But those are at a good price point, you know, and the used Jeeps that we're seeing now are just, sometimes they're not at the right price point, but.
And I think the hard part is this is like, can you go too far with a build? You've got to know if you're going to keep it or not. You can definitely go too far. I mean, my JK that I had a white two-door. Remember that? I had axles, everything under it. There's some mods that you can't reverse. So, like, for me, I did, the white Jeep, the 392 the same way. But the white Jeep, I had long arms welded into it, and I had axles under it. I could pull the axles off and sell those and put it back to stock, but the long arms had to stay. So it was a 4.5-inch long arm on stock tires by the time I sold it. And stripping it down, too, like taking a Jeep like my 392 and trying to strip it back to stock, sell off all the parts as used parts, you're probably going to get 40% of what you paid for those. You're not getting any labor back, and if you don't know how to do the labor to pull it all back off, you're going to have to pay like triple because it's removing the parts and installing stock again. So you've got to find someone that wants to buy your Jeep at the end of it, or you've got to go into it with the impression like, if I sell this at the end, I'm not going to get
You're not going to get diddly dog.
No, you're
Yeah,
gonna, you're not gonna get it. No, I mean, it's hard unless you find the right buyer or you have a specialty buyer.
or a specialty dealership that like personally buys Jeeps, like my two-door JK. Like I had to sell it to a Jeep dealership because of the problems of certain mods that we put on it. It added serious death wobble to some of the already kind of rusting functionality the JK had. That JK had, but. Yeah, that's the other factor. You throw
just
all
not
these
getting
throw all
stuff
these
out of it,
mods
yeah.
on, and you change the ride quality, and you can't get it back because you got rid of some of your factory components and lift kits. If you're selling it to a dealership then that has those issues, you're going to lose and diminish the amount you probably would have gotten if it was stock.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, not everyone goes into a build with the idea of I'm going to sell this in a year. A lot of people say I'm going to keep this forever. Things change, life changes.
You look at a Jeep though that way because used Jeeps would sell so good.
They would. Yeah, they'd fly off the shelves. But I do think that they're like this whole video, did you go too far? I think there is a level like my Jeep at this point. Like you're not returning any of that to stock, nor would I. But you're going to have to find someone that wants all of that done to it the way it is. And to make anything out of it, it's not like a money-making endeavor. It used to be. It used to be back in the day. You could lift a Jeep, put some wheels and tires, but there was like a limit of how much you could put into it, and then you started losing money or not making a profit. And I think back in the day, a lot of dealers too saw that, and they'd throw on like a crap lift and a crap wheels and tires and put 10K on the, remember that? Rough country lift and a little like 35s or a puck lift, 10K, triple black lift kit, all right, guys. But then they'd sell it because someone walked in and was like, I like the look of that, I'll take it. Yeah. And it's done. So
Yeah, there's limited buyers for lifted Jeeps, or not lifted Jeeps, but just Jeeps that are built up in general. And you could get into even selling your yellow Jeep, like
it was, and also to the point of it, like here's one thing I'll tell you, it kills me to take apart a built Jeep. When I start ripping apart like my white Jeep, my JK, which was my favorite two-door, it killed my heart to rip everything off that I'd put so much blood, sweat, and tears into. You know what I mean? Then sell it for 40 cents on the dollar. And it was like I'm ripping apart all these years of memories and years of parts that I've installed to make what off of it, right? And it's like, and then all that labor involved too, and putting it back to stock and finding a buyer for it. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you got to go into this build thinking, either I'm keeping it forever or I'm going to keep all my stock parts in a corner, which takes up space, which is valuable in every American household, and figure it out,
What do you think about your builds, like current builds? Is there anything that you regret? Not as far as the companies and parts that you put on it, but like just putting it and building it to that level, because I think a lot of people were like, why the heck are you going this big and this grand with this build compared to like, say, something that we're doing with the two-door here, my Jeep?
I think it was interesting for me because I did it based upon the 392. I initially had a different perspective on what I was going to do. I was going to get another 392 and keep it almost like stock height, but just strip all the fenders and everything off. So very low center of gravity, but have like 37 stripped down fender flares and all that. But I think as I started to see all those new products released, the drop-down tailgate, the stuff like that, you kind of have to go with the theme of the build. And that's another thing. You either go rock crawler, overlander, daily driver. A lot of them don't really mix. If you're going to be an overland build, you're not going higher than like a 35, 37 max, or if you start sacrificing gas mileage, drivability. Regrets on mine, I can't get into the damn thing. I can't jump into it. It's so tall. Dude, that thing's on 40s. I have kids.
Well, you put walk in the back.
It's like, and I'm at the grocery store and I got the plumber's crack in the back and I'm like trying to stand up there. It's tall but there's a sacrifice for that. I wanted the steel sliders on there.
But you could have went with something else.
Like Rockslide Engineering Power Steps or whatever. And then I could have like.
But the theme would have been off then.
And then it would have been taken away for me to get into.
So
I want it difficult.
There's mods, you can add that are going to make your day easier, and there's mods that they're not going to make it easier, but they're going to work somewhere else, like off-roading or just to, I don't know, be badass looking, right?
Yeah, any regrets? I think just the biggest thing is like getting in and out of the thing. It is, and then I almost I love the 40s, but 37s would have been, I think, fine.
I think eventually you could go down to 37s if you.
Because I think everything just had to start. Like I need PSC, I need power assist on that. Like I can barely steer it off road. It just needs to be so much more built.
And I think if you do keep your Jeep too, you can always change things out, right? Like say you get more money down the road and you want to just see what different wheels look like, see what different tires feel like. I think that's the cool thing about it is you can just switch it up when you want. Now some things you can't. I mean, there's obviously
and
some
all the things that
components you can't.
that I've permanently modded on that, I did those on purpose. None of that was like, hey Matt, put these on your Jeep. Like none of it. It was I want to do all these. So I think there was a theme with the build. Everything flowed at the time we built it. That's my favorite part. And everyone, if you're new to the channel, you don't know that I love building them. So when I see this as a fresh project, you know how many ideas I have going through my head because I want to build it. But then when it's done, it's.
I want to know, like, if there's some viewers out there that build up their Jeep and once they build it up, they realize, oh, this kind of sucks the way it is. I kind of want to sell it and get a fresh build or get into another vehicle because it almost ruined the experience of the Jeep.
No, Ryan, I agree with you. I think there probably are some people that once the build was done,
they were like, shoot.
Right.
I mean, I'll be honest, my JK, I was like, once I got a lift on
once
there.
we surprised you with
once
the
you
lift,
surprised
and then
me.
it just made all the other problems
No, but
so much worse.
I liked the height of it, and I liked the feel of being a little bit higher up in the road, but because my Jeep was already really rusted underneath, I think it really affected the ride quality. Now, I don't know if that would have been different if I would have put a better lift kit or.
It would have. If we would have put like a Clayton full kit on it, because that was back in another company where we surprised Ryan with a lifted Jeep, and it was like a lift that we could like swing and just do for him. You know, somebody could help out, but it was a cheaper lift. It was like a $700 lift, and it didn't have. The problem is when you start modifying a used Jeep, if it's already got issues underneath, it makes the other little issues bigger because a lift kit makes bigger tires, make more wobbles, more vibrations. It's more stress. And I think to your point, like you said, it took a little bit of the joy out of driving it. I remember it was just like not as fun. It looked great.
Another thing too was I was a manual transmission and I had the short shifter added.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different feel.
Did you like the short shifter?
No. It was
that
too
was like a
clunky.
Short shifter
I know,
too.
but it was
crazy.
too clunky to actually shift. But I missed the fluidity of the factory shifter on the JK. So that's another. That was
like that.
Some mods completely changed the quality of my drive, and just even removing that part for you would have been a complete hassle, and didn't really make sense to do it. But
and you know what's funny too? You know, you bring up that point of like buying a shifter like that and putting it on. It's like a $600 shifter. It's almost the point of our whole channel is to try out products so you don't have to. Yeah. So you can see if like, hell no, I'm not investing that much time or drilling into my tub to do that. Or yeah, I like that light. Or that looks like crap. We're doing it here, and like the little entry guards where I'm like, yeah, the 3M doesn't stick, and like we lose so much money buying stuff that doesn't work to show you guys.
Right. And I think like showing off a build like you did with your 392, like that really just gave people an insight. Like, would I ever go to this extreme to kind of figure that out?
Yeah.
That's why we do a variety of different builds because I think it allows people to just see what we're doing and if it makes sense for them.
And it's all subjective. Yeah, a lot of people were writing, you ruined that Jeep. It was perfect on stock. It was perfect on 40s with stock fenders. But it was funny because every comment that said that was like different. It was perfect when blank. It was perfect when blank. So it's very subjective to when you think it was perfect or when the build is perfection. Yeah. So, and I do think it takes a lot. I think a lot of people too, when you walk around Jeep shows, it's intimidating. You're going up to vendor booths like MagnaFlow or some of these huge companies, and they've got $300,000 rigs sitting out front. Yeah. And yours doesn't look like that, but you want it to, and then you start going down the rabbit hole of, oh my God, like this is just insanity, you know? I think the reason we bring up the word mods so much, Ryan, is because we have done so many mods for like
a lot of
7 years, 8 years.
I think I've edited over 1,000 videos of different parts.
Easily. And we've installed, especially like I've installed anything you can imagine on these Jeeps. Over the years, it just kept adding up. And I think the problem we had is that over the years, when you're working for a different company, you're different places, you don't get to necessarily put your personal opinion in it all the time. It's like, hey, make this look good on camera. But then off camera, we're banging it, we're smashing it, it's not fitting, the lights aren't working, just to make it work. And the goal with this when we started was just to have products on here that, like, when you buy it, I don't think anyone that's picked up a Distinction Applied grill has been upset. Anyone that buys a Clayton Off-Road lift, anyone that, like, works with B&M Off-Road, works with Locked and Loaded, works with these guys Moto-Built, like, it's products that we bought so many of, and you like it. It just works, you know. You're pleasantly surprised by the quality, you know. So it's important to thoroughly vet who you're working with. You know, we've got some new products coming out. We're always coming out with stuff, and we're doing products that we've got a lot of cool ones. Some interior stuff you guys are gonna love. We like plug and play. We like stuff that works, and if there are issues, we fix it or we resolve it. Everything's constantly flowing. It's constantly evolving. as a business too, we are. You know, you got to be good with your mods. You got to be good with your parts.
Culture is constantly changing too. Like you can decide to get something crazy nowadays, but you could also just go for the simple kind of Jeep build too.
Right.
And I think that's the cool thing about this community. We can just be whatever we want it to be for your build. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. I think this is a cool video on mods. So what I'd like to know down below, I like that one too. Did somebody go too far on your mods? List out like your top 5 like favorite mods, or like top 5 that like I would never buy again. Yeah. If you guys don't mind, you know, that's a lot to comment, or just list one favorite. Like this is my favorite. This is my most hated, and like drop it because we'd love to see that. Maybe there'll be some ideas.
Yeah, we don't want it to be a bash fest on certain companies or whatever, but we want it to be just like, yeah, I didn't really care for a short shifter put on my manual two-door.
You didn't like it?
I hated it. I didn't really like it. I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all, and it kind of ruined my experience with my Jeep. And I wanted to go backwards with it, but
the problem was it was almost $1,000 later with a new clutch, and to go back, it's a lot.
Yeah, no.
Some of these mods too, guys, it's a lot of money to put on too. So you invest that kind of money, and it ruins your experience, and you're like,
yeah, should I have done this? Do I regret this? And that's the point of the whole video.
Yeah, because sometimes you force yourself to like something too. We all do that as humans. Like I buy a new iPad, this thing's the best because I just spent, X amount of dollars on it, of course. And but yeah, we're discussing. I think with this build, here's a little bit on this build, right? At the end, we always do this. We're talking about the 25 build. You guys loved Ryan's new intro. Kudos to Ryan for making that new intro with the star. That's the invasion star. That's the invasion star that would have been found on World War II vehicles. So that was to denote invasion vehicles. And I think that star looked cooler with our logo on it. But we got some cool stuff. So we figured out we're going to be doing some nice bumpers on this. And we're not going to tell you what kind of bumpers they are, though. But let's just say we'll be doing a little fabrication to make them work. I think that's one thing we're going to talk about. We got this coming up on a holiday parade, too. So we're going to try and also really customize what we can on it and do it by hand. I think a lot of guys at that time would have been doing things by hand and doing it themselves. So with this build, though, we got a lot of parts on order. So some custom painted pieces right now. And I still want to hear, and Ryan wants to hear, like anyone that has World War II vets in your life, send them. Yeah. Send us if you're comfortable with it, send us a couple photos, send us some info. We have a pretty good email folder filled up with that. And it's just becoming so cool. So many great stories, emotional stories in there. So that's how we want to mod this. Maybe it's like an homage to all those people. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I think anyone to give you advice on have you gone too far with mods, we're the people to do it. I mean, we've probably gone too far in a lot of Jeeps. We haven't gone far enough in some Jeeps. So let us know down below in the comments what you guys think. And if you like this style of video, what other topics would you guys like us to address? I'd love to go down and talk to like Locked and Loaded or up to Clayton or B&M. Maybe do like a 40-minute on wheels and tires offset. What are the best? What they've run into issues over the years. This is almost like a master class. You're talking to guys that have been doing this thing for 30 years. So yeah, we're just happy to bring this style of content to you for sure. My name's Matt. Ryan's behind the camera and on the camera today,
and we want you to get out there and earn yours.